Hey, everyone. It's Sleepy Reader, aka Damien. Happy New Year, everyone. Cheers. I'm in suspense whether this will be good or bad. I've never had this beer. In fact, I don't even remember buying it. Someone must have left it at my house. So, 2022 is over. This, as I record this, is January 1st, 2023. And I looked back over all the comics I've read, all the new comics I've read, and there was a better group of comics than I thought. Actually, I thought at first when I look back there wouldn't be that many good ones, but there was plenty of good stuff. And so I'm gonna give you my kind of I'm not sure how many there are in my top list, and then my also rans. And before that, I'll also give you my favorite one shots, and then a few comics I'm looking forward to going ahead into the new year. So, yeah, it's been a good year in terms of comic community, so that's great. We had fun with the Comic Community Awards, and I'm hoping to hang out with a wider variety of people online. The live hangouts are hard for me to schedule, quite hard. And when I started out on YouTube, live hangouts weren't at first didn't exist, and then when they started to exist, people didn't do them that much. And I'm still used to communicating people through recorded sound bits. That's really easier. It's more practical than trying to be free when people are doing live hangouts. Although obviously live hangouts have a lot of power to them. So that's one of my New Year's goals, I guess, is to try to find spaces to do more hangouts with a wider variety of people. And then another goal, which actually will mean that next year when I do a video like this, it will be much different. Another goal is for 2023 to read a lot less new comics. And it's not because I'm against new comics at all, but it's just a matter of balancing my time. I've picked up so many trades and all the other stuff, what have you, trades, back issues, monster collections of masterpieces from the past, and so I want to actually make time to read them. I get caught up in the weekly cycle of new comics, and I just read a few of my back issues and race through the 7 to 14 new comics that I get each week. So I'm aiming either to slowly eliminate new comics completely for a good part of the year, or maybe just cut down my weekly pull to 3 or 4 comics a week. But in either case, I hope to sort of catch up with my reading, and then in 2024 ramp back up to more modern comics. I sort of feel like it can end up like rock and roll, where you just go see these old monsters when they go on tour, and they outshine any new struggling rock bands that might be out there. But I want to go to the small clubs and see or the smaller venues and see what's really going on currently, because I am fascinated by the whole sweep of the history of comics from the very beginnings to where it's heading in the future, and it is my favorite medium, and a great hobby to just kind of keep an eye on. So anyway, let me start with my favorite one-shots from this past year, and a couple of them I couldn't find. I went to my that storage locker that I have where I've put all my short boxes, and I brought my last 8 short boxes over there. So I think there's over 100 short boxes in there. And I looked through a few boxes that I thought might have the newer comics, and I found most of what I was looking for, but I did not find Cursed Pirate Girl, and that was definitely a highlight of the year. It was a one-shot, incredible book. I wonder where I put it. I need to dig that up, and that's kind of on top of the printer, if you were Jared Osborne, a book to keep out and flip into. So that was a mistake of mine wherever I put that. And then another one, which was a beautiful comic, was King Jira. There was a one-shot kind of, I think it was from Scout Comics, but I think it was originally published. I had a brief online conversation with the creator who published it in black and white in Italy, and then it got color in the United States. And I saw there's kind of an artist edition of it too, but the copy of the artist edition that I saw at a comic book store looked a little beat up, so I didn't grab it. But maybe I should look for that online. So those are the two one-shots that I don't have copies with me. I'm counting the Santos Sisters as a one-shot. I don't know if this is going to be an ongoing. We got 2 issues of it this year, and it was hilarious. I liked the sense of humor. I liked the play with all kinds of classic comics, kids comics, and Archie comics and other things, but with kind of a stoner sense of humor, you'd say, or something. I don't quite know. Being so old as I am, I don't know what sense of humor this was representing, if it was a specific genre. But yeah, Santos Sisters was very cool. I imagine if you look around, you can find issue 1 and issue 2 still in certain shops. And then the second one-shot of Mall Cop. I loved the first Mall Cop. I don't know if that came out in 2021 or 2022. The second one-shot was very good. I think the art had improved in some ways, but maybe it was just a touch less exciting than the first Mall Cop. Maybe because of the lack of newness, a lack of what's that word for when something's really fresh. And then a one-shot that I really liked a lot that I didn't hear much about at all was from the publisher Sex, CEX Publishing, and it's a one-shot adaptation of Edgar Allan Poe's poem, The Conqueror Worm. And this has really stayed with me. It was just a really cool interpretation of the poem visually. And good comics, in my opinion. Good comics storytelling. And finally, of the one-shots, I really, really enjoyed Statics by Jeffrey Lewis. He is very blatant that he would like to be like my usual on-camera problems. He would like to be like Daniel Clowes and like to be like who's the guy who did Hate, and anyway, you know who I mean. So anyway, but this was very interesting, kind of one guy doing a lot of different interesting, slightly undergroundish stories in one issue. Kind of a throwback, I guess, to the alternate comics of the 90s. I dug it. Okay, so on to my favorite comics of the year, this comic series, in no particular order, except the first one I'm going to show you is the one I enjoyed the most. I'm not saying these are the best. I'm saying these are my favorites, by the way. And I didn't read everything, of course, that came out. For instance, everyone's raving about Do a Powerbomb, and I made a decision to wait for the oversized hardback because that's the way I like Daniel Warren Johnson's art. So I thought I'd wait. So I can't. That might have been the best of the year because a lot of people are saying that. So for me, the comic I loved the most this year, I got the most fun out of, was the 7-issue miniseries Shaolin Cowboy: Cruel to Be Kin. Possibly the last Shaolin Cowboy series. It's the 4th one. You can read any of them. You can start with any of them. Although Who Will Stop the Rain and Cruel to Be Kin are my 2 favorites. The art and storytelling, sort of the storytelling of the art. It's all about the art, right? There's nothing wrong at all with Jeff Darrow's dialogue, but it's not plot heavy, and everything that the really important stuff is all in the art, both the incredible sort of Where's Waldo detail in the backgrounds, but the choreographed action and reaction and everything is just so thought out. It's sort of there's this kind of a school of artists now that imitate Jeff Darrow, and I suspect there'll be more in the future. So that was very cool. And another, super strong series that keeps going. It turns out Ice Cream Man put out 6 issues this year. Sometimes it felt like the gap between issues was longer, but so it's basically a bi-monthly comic. And the art keeps getting better. The writing, it keeps being inventive and finding new ways to explore the admittedly sort of limited theme in a sense of Ice Cream Man, although it's about the human condition, but kind of in the sad, bitter side of the human condition. But anyway, I think I enjoyed every issue of of Ice Cream Man this year, and it's Maxwell Prince as a writer has such a unique voice and perspective. He kind of stands alone, and that is really incredibly cool. And maybe that's both with Ice Cream Man and Shaolin Cowboy. We get comics that are their own thing. You can't say, oh, that's like Grant Morrison, or this is like Alan Moore, or Stan Lee, or Little Nemo, or Crazy Cat. I mean, these are their own thing, 100%. Another favorite this year was The Human Target. Incredible art. A fun story from Tom King. Made me a little uneasy because he's always sort of bringing superheroes down to cutting them off at the knees and making them just sort of weak, somewhat pitiful humans. But anyway, Greg Smallwood is such a fantastic collaborator with him. He should definitely, in my opinion, be winning some big awards coming up next. Just incredible artist. Perhaps somewhat in the tradition of Darwin Cook, but still, I think his own man and his own creative person. And then, almost too boring to say, is Usagi Yojimbo continues to be a great comic. I enjoy every issue as it comes out. I think I take it for granted at this point. But ironically, just as I'm taking it for granted, it seems to have disappeared. The news is it's moving back to Dark Horse from IDW, and that, in fact, Stan Sakai will have his own sort of label at Dark Horse. So hopefully that will include regular issues of Usagi Yojimbo. He was putting them out so regularly, so consistently, never any sign of flagging in both the art and the inventive stories within sort of the framework of a Usagi Yojimbo story. There is a certain kind of feel to Usagi Yojimbo stories, but within that framework, he does fantastic stuff. Another comic I loved in 2022, and they've just started volume 2, issue 1 of volume 2 just came out, was My Bad, which is kind of a spoofy superhero universe with a kind of, sometimes it feels like Mad Magazine, sometimes it feels like, I don't know. I don't even know what to compare it to. Not Brand Echh or what have you, but other times it feels like it goes off in some other interesting directions, and it definitely gives you feelings, and it has a clever structure and everything. It's really kind of a subtly brilliant yet silly and dumb comic at the same time. And I'm partially influenced because my daughter and I love to read this one out loud together. Comedic comics read out loud are even better than read silently, of course. A huge comic of the last few years for me has been Norse mythology. Sadly, it's all over. I'm going to have to decide whether to double dip if they come out with like a massive library edition or something. But the final volume of Norse mythology was as wonderful and as great, maybe even better than the first volume. There were 3 volumes total, I believe. Yeah. But anyway, it ended really strong, and definitely a comic that I will be rereading over the years and passing on to my daughter for sure. Another one I loved was Twig. I hope it comes back, again supported by just absolutely incredible artwork. So artist Kyle Strom is really the one holding up this comic. It's a perfectly good sort of kids story written by Scotty Young, and I enjoyed it. But it was really the artwork that made the whole thing super click. And anyway, I'm kind of praying to the comic book gods that there will be more Twig by the same creative team. And not at all last is A Righteous Thirst for Vengeance, and I really look forward to rereading it. I think there are subtleties of structure and theme that I'm just barely became aware of in the first read. I started to get a sense, particularly of how each individual issue was actually structured differently than the previous one, and they made various skips in time and such. And so they trusted the audience a lot to put the whole story together in a way. And the Andre Lima Araujo was a revelation, such an incredible artist. And Rick Remender knew to give him room to tell the story and create the characters or express the characters for us on the page. So another brilliant piece of comic book making. And I forgot to pull out, but I also wanted to mention, I don't know, I was thinking of it as a series, even though it was one large book, but Fantastic Four Full Circle by Alex Ross was another delight that came out this year. And if you divided it up, it would be like 4 or 5 issues, right? So I sort of was going to put it in that pile rather than the one-shots. Okay, now just to throw out some also rans at you because there were so many good comics. Dark Knights of Steel, I have been thoroughly enjoying. I am not sure if they'll pull it off in the end, which is part of why it's not like in my top tier list. We'll see. Now that it's all war with some twists and turns, I'm less. I don't know. I still like it a lot, but it's maybe not slightly lowered in my mind. I loved Heavy Metal Drummer, partially for the kind of punk rock art and punk rock or underground-ish art, and also for the totally gonzo sci-fi horror story going on in it. But it didn't end as satisfying. I didn't put it in the top tier because of its finale. I really enjoy and look forward to every issue of Newburn. It's low key. It's a low key crime story, if that's possible, and for whatever reason, it just makes it into the second tier. But a very good book of the year, and I had so much fun with the Hour of the Dragon, also known as Conan the Conqueror, adaptation from Europe, because of the art. And it's the novel it's based on is a great Conan novel. It's the only Conan novel written by Robert E. Howard, as opposed to short stories. But this art is kind of next level. I really, really want a massive sized hardback of it. And I know that Ablaze just puts out comic book size hardbacks. And I believe in Europe the art would have originally appeared at a larger size to begin with. But nevertheless, it was fantastic. Also really cool and really sad is Aerosmith Behind Enemy Lines, because we lost Carlos Pacheco this year, the artist behind this, along with his partner, Kurt Busiek, the writer. And this was a very solid, enjoyable entry into the revival of Aerosmith. But they did the 6 issues, and it's the first half of the story. Carlos has died. I don't know if it makes sense for them to continue without him, or it'll just have to, join the ranks of the great unfinished comics out there. I really enjoyed Agent of World. I'm still kind of holding my breath as to whether I love it or not. So incredible artwork, you might say, in the Jeff Darrow mold a bit, but I'm sure he's his own man in many ways, especially in the layouts. and and a wacky sort of post James Bond surreal, post James Bond and post The Prisoner surreal sci-fi. Sci-fi super secret agent spy kind of book. Town Called Terror was a big favorite of mine as I was reading it. It ended just okay rather than, it didn't blow me away at the ending. So endings are hard, but that kind of pushed it down to the lower tier. The art style and the minimalistic writing really went well together, and this was a fun trip. And I think they're going to come back with more Town Called Terror, and I'm really excited by that. Step by Bloody Step was a not quite successful experiment in a long-form silent comic, in my opinion. But the art was incredible, and it was a beautiful story. So I don't at all regret reading it. And I'd like to see more of this team. I think it could have been a better story with just a few words here or there to clarify a few things. But it was a very cool, epic, I think, was it 5 issues? Or maybe it was 6. But they were all oversized, so it's probably close to 200 pages of silent comic. That almost worked. Fables, The Return of Fables, The Black Forest, this is the first issue, has been really strong. I can't tell, I've really been loving it, but I can't tell completely if I'm going to love it by the time it ends, if that makes sense. And then I've been getting a great kick out of these Lovecraft Unknown Kadath. And I don't know how many issues it's going to go for. I think they're up to, was this the latest issue? I'm not sure if they're up to 4 or 5. And I think I saw a preview for 6 or 7. So it's going on for a while. It's an adaptation of an H.P. Lovecraft novella, and it's done very well. It probably has some of the limitations of H.P. Lovecraft in terms of a long-form story, in terms of like characterization, or like there's a certain level of simplicity, if that makes sense. There's a complexity to H.P. Lovecraft, but there's also a simplicity. So we're not getting a character arc or anything like that, or very little of it. But anyway, I'm really enjoying this, and just didn't quite feel I could put it in the top tier. And another one that's not quite in the top tier is 8 Billion Genies. I think first 3 issues, I really loved it. I think it's a little bit hurt by its structure of having to skip so much time each issue. The first issue was the first 8 minutes, then the first 8 hours, first 8 days, first 8 months, first 8 years. Was this one the first 8 years? Yeah, this one's the first 8 years, and I think they promise us next the first 8 decades. And that's a cool structure, but I'm not sure it makes the story as satisfying as it was earlier on when we had a greater continuity. Okay, and finally, some comics, and this is a very small group. If I dug deeper, I think I'd find more comics that I'm looking forward to as the year goes forward, so we haven't seen enough. Albatross Exploding Funny Books. We only got 1 issue of this. It's Eric Powell doing a bunch of continuing stories and some one-shot stories all together in his own personal anthology. And the first issue was really good, and then no more issues ever came out. But I have heard that he, too, is moving back to Dark Horse. And so hopefully that means at Dark Horse, once they get their ducks in a row, we'll be getting more issues of Albatross Exploding Funny Books. Or if not that, more issues of some kind of Eric Powell comics. And all Eric Powell comics are worth waiting for. And then from the, well, not the team, but some of the people involved in Heavy Metal Drummer is this new series, The Purple Oblivion, which apparently is expanded from a graphic novel that came out a while ago. And I'm loving the crazy story and the crazy sci-fi horror story with wacky, crazy mad scientists and sex workers and S&M and drug addiction and all kinds of crazy stuff. So I'm not sure how long this will be, but I'm really looking forward to the rest of Purple Oblivion. I'm really looking forward to... I've only read the first issue. I guess the second issue came out, and maybe it's only 4 issues, but they're very thick issues. I'm looking forward to seeing where Doctor Strange by Tradd Moore goes. I know I will love the art. Whether I'll love the story in the end, I don't know yet, but we'll see. I'm also, much to my surprise, kind of looking forward to see where Ronin 2 by Frank Miller and his collaborators, Philip Tan and Henriquez. It's hard to find the first name credit, but Henriquez. I really enjoyed this first issue. The price was too high, so I'm going to be looking. But I managed to get this issue for half price. So I think I'm going to be looking for ways to get this steeply discounted. What was the price? It doesn't say on here, but I think it was $8, and it's a good solid $6 book maybe. So if I can find ways to get it for $6, I love these double page spreads that tell the whole story is told in the double page spreads. So fantastic, or potentially fantastic stuff. Okay, that's my year, the 2022, all done. Thank you very much for joining me, and I look forward to the videos that we're all going to do this coming year. Talk to you later.